July, an annual festival in St. Petersburg dedicated to Dostoyevsky. The great writer, thinker and psychologist. People often turn to his work to understand Russia and Russians, and perhaps even themselves.
Se potessi non morire, se potessi far tornare indietro la vita, quale infinità?
July, an annual festival in St. Petersburg dedicated to Dostoyevsky. The great writer, thinker and psychologist. People often turn to his work. Narrow streets, the bustling Piazza Maggiore, countless arches. Fyodor Dostoyevsky once walked here in the heart of Bologna. He visited Italy 3 times when fleeing from lenders and found inspiration. It was in Italy that he finished his novel, The Idiot.
Non morire. Se potessi far tornare indietro la vita, quale infinità? E tutto questo sarebbe mio. Io allora trasformerei ogni minuto in un secolo intero. Non perderei nulla, terrei conto di ogni minuto, non ne sprecherei nessuno.
The Italian artist Dario Gambarin has often read these lines from Prince Mishkin's monologue. Dostoevsky's The Idiot is his favorite. It inspired him to paint a giant portrait of the author.
Io sono un neo-espressionista astratto, lavoro con olio e acrilico. Aggiungere, o devo dire che la mia land art deriva dal fatto che io sono un pittore. Cioè io dipingo, sono 30 anni, 35 anni che dipingo e ho fatto mostre internazionali a Los Angeles, a Berlino, a Monaco, in Italia a Napoli, eccetera, eccetera.
Fyodor Dostoevsky's likeness is 250 meters long and covers 25,000 square meters. The canvas is a wheat field and the brush strokes applied by a tractor and plow.
La barba è una delle cose più difficili, non solo da fare da un punto di vista di land art, ma anche da fare, cioè da disegnare, perché basta che sbagli un attimo, che non dai la giusta direzione, si capisce subito che la barba viene rovinata, e sicché farla in un disegno è abbastanza semplice perché poi la vedi, la puoi cancellare. Segnarla su un terreno che poi non puoi cancellare perché rovini tutto è stata la cosa più difficile.
Dario Gambarin says his art is ephemeral. It doesn't last long and disappears in a few days, which can't be said about the impact that Dostoevsky himself has had on world culture.
Addirittura Nietzsche diceva che il più grande psicologo era Dostoyevsky. Sicuramente è un personaggio, scrittore, che ha lasciato una profonda traccia nella cultura europea. Dostoyevsky per me è la forza del carattere, cioè il nonostante tutto si riesce a rifare una vita, a rimettersi in gioco e soprattutto dare con le sue opere un significato profondo alla vita. Mentre il russo ha questa forza che secondo me è questa decisione di carattere che ha portato poi un uomo con tantissime difficoltà a riuscire a produrre una delle opere così grandi che dopo 200 anni noi siamo ancora qui a inchinarci, a leggere e soprattutto ad imparare.
I don't know if I'd call it a trophy. I think we all got them for winning, so I guess that does make it a trophy.
Patrick Weiss is holding a figurine, a prize he won at the annual Dostoyevsky Games, a contest for students from the leading universities in North Carolina, which is among the main centers in the US for studying Dostoyevsky.
It was my last semester of college, and I took a Dostoyevsky class. And the idea was just to, read a few of Dostoyevsky's works.
But somehow they got so carried away by Dostoyevsky that his novels were given new, modern interpretations. Rap, allusions and video, all inspired by his novels. Crime and Punishment might be his most popular, even mainstream novel. Murder, money lending, blood and redemption all fit quite neatly into a modern music video.
Now this is the story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. So I'd like to take a minute, and in any event, I'll tell you how I did a crime and how I got punishment.
This video was literally made in a day, with help from friends on the campus. But it brought Patrick his victory in the Dostoyevsky Games. Such a clear and concise representation of the Russian writer's work is rare.
Thinking up, stewing in my little cesspool, and writing some stuff when I dropped out of school. Then I got an idea, and I thought it was good. I should kill a lady in my neighborhood. I grabbed one little axe and hit her straight in the head. Next thing I know, she and her sister are both lying dead. I was just trying to make a fun, approachable version of the novel. Being Raskolnikov was interesting. I guess I felt that I looked the part towards the end of my senior year. And I just had long, greasy hair. Back in my house, I dreamt about killing. When I woke up, Svid was in my room chilling.
Svid Regalov.
It just sort of worked together, and it was a lot of fun. And we sort of just did it and didn't second guess ourselves too much. And when I actually shared it at the Dostoyevsky Games, I was very embarrassed. I could hardly watch it myself, but now when I look back at it, I think it's awesome.
I was just thinking, I haven't really thought about Crime and Punishment for a while, but great book.
I just reread it, and you should check it out again. And also just being able to read it at a slower pace.
So why did Raskolnikov do it?
He pretty much held on to the idea that he did it to test his theory, and because he thought he might be an extraordinary man. The Dostoyevsky Games, very unique, it felt really special, something like that doesn't happen regularly. 35 people who are all young, but also interested in Dostoyevsky.
Sick, spiteful, wicked. A wicked man, and ugly, and tired. So tired my body hurts.
That's how Notes from Underground, one of Dostoyevsky's major works, begins. It was published in St. Petersburg in 1864 and reborn in the 21st century on the other side of the ocean. An experimental theater group from Philadelphia carried Dostoyevsky's leading character and the scenery to a ghetto in the western outskirts of the oldest city in the US. Single-story America, small houses, countless anonymous streets and alleys, resembling the yellow St. Petersburg Dostoyevsky portrayed in his novels.
One of the quotes that really stuck out to me that I really identified with, I would now like to tell you, gentlemen, whether you do or do not wish to hear it, why I have never managed to become even an insect. I tell you solemnly that I wanted many times to become an insect, but I was not deemed worthy even of that. This quote comes out early that drives this character, the underground man, based on Dostoevsky's character.
In this online play, the lead character is not a retired government official from St. Petersburg, as Dostoyevsky wrote, but a black police officer who's worked too long for a system steeped in violence and racism.
I was a wicked man when I was on the force. I was rude, and I took pleasure in it. It made me sick. And now, I'm living out my life in my corner, on the internet, taunting myself with these spiteful, futile consolations that it's even possible for an intelligent black man to become anything in this city in this country. It. Only fools become anything in a system built for fools. Yes, sir. An intelligent black man of the 21st century must either sit down or shut up.
The image of a small, resentful and oppressed man in Notes from Underground has become particularly relevant to a new generation of black people fighting for their rights. The concept of a hero isolated from the outside world and fighting an internal battle came in the wake of the pandemic.
We wanted to do a whole season of shows around isolation to match our moment of being in isolation due to COVID and to reflect the time that we're going through. And that's kind of the cool thing about this adaptation, is just overlaying those different given circumstances of like, okay, no more 19th century, 21st century. It was like, oh wow, this is really easy to recontextualize, because they talk about politics, how like a man's perspective and how he treats a woman.
The story was inspired by events here in Philadelphia in May 1985. US authorities destroyed a whole block with explosives while storming activists from MOVE, a fringe group that advocated living with nature, opposed technology and medicines, and campaigned against animal abuse.
The events of 1985 in Philly drove our character into hiding, and then he resurfaced at this new age of protest. And one of the characters in the play, Liza, who in the Dostoyevsky version is a prostitute, in our version
94.3% of our audience is not subscribed yet. Do you enjoy this content? Subscribe now and support our channel. Your click makes the difference. We keep going.
She was an activist. She lived around this neighborhood, and he goes to check on her.
I can't unsee the things that Liza woke me up to at that precinct in the system. Things I had chosen to ignore. The sneaking, the lying, the abuse. So many horrible things.
MOVE became a thorn in the side of US authorities. Black hippies who rejected the system regularly disrupted local government proceedings, gave shelter to drug addicts, and eventually started taking up arms. It was finally decided that the group had to be dealt with for good. The operation to evict MOVE ended in tragedy. A residential area was bombed, and the resulting fire destroyed dozens of houses.
Tear, gas, canisters, and shells lead in the gut, and screams echo through the air, riding the echoes of sirens. It was fire everywhere, and still the sound of bullets. 4 hours later, 61 houses would be decimated. Everyone in the MOVE house was dead.
Well, we are walking to the site of the MOVE bombing.
So, this is where the house actually sat. I don't know, I was young. I was young at that time, but and I can remember hearing about this on the news and how it affected me and how it still bothers me today. Because it didn't have to happen. But this is America. Our character is more so of a hero as opposed to the Dostoevsky character. But it's the human struggle. I could really identify with that struggle.
I mean, both pieces are kind of a protest piece. Like Dostoevsky was kind of commenting on the Russia of his time, and with our piece, we're commenting on the Philly and the United States of our time. I mean, human nature never changes.
Я хотел лишь узнать, веруете вы сами в Бога или нет?
Я верю в Россию, я верю в ее православие, я верю в тело Христово, я верю, что новое пришествие совершится в России.
It was no accident when Elise and Lena, students from North Carolina, read a specific passage from Dostoevsky's Demons. The 200th anniversary of the great writer's birth coincides with another milestone. 150 years ago, while traveling, he was finishing one of his least known but perhaps most significant works.
And I think within this book in particular, I found it very rewarding to read, in the sense that I can find many reflections within myself and within real life today. Like, I know in Biesle, the younger generation is kind of always hating on the older generation for being wrong and bitter about it. And the older generation's kind of always looking down upon these novel ideas with a lot of kind of like fear that their, traditions are gonna be uprooted. So I think just like all these themes are very apparent throughout time. I don't imagine they'll ever stop being relevant, and they always have been relevant.
Dostoyevsky conceived Demons as a small pamphlet critical of the nihilists and radicals of the day, a new generation that rejected the established social order. But he ended up writing quite a weighty tome, a political thriller, satirical pulp fiction, religious drama, and existential tragedy, all in one.
How this reading felt for you between Tuesday and Thursday? Are you getting more engaged in the novel? Are you caring more about these characters now than you were before?
The plot of Demons is discussed at workshops among students at Duke University, one of the most prestigious in the United States. Almost a contemporary of Dostoyevsky himself, Duke University was founded in 1838. It's known today not just for teaching medicine, law, and business, but also as one of the world's leading centers for the study of Russian literature.
Is Peter a revolutionary? Is he a socialist? Right? He does have political goals, as you're saying, right? He wants to manipulate Stavrogan.
He wants to destroy things. He hates old forms, like he confessed to Karamazov, and he doesn't really want to create anything new except just destroy everything and put Stavrogan at top.
Professor Carol Apollonio of Duke University is a renowned American expert on Russian literature who's published many books and research papers. Despite her broad knowledge of the subject, she admits that she rediscovers Dostoyevsky every time she reads his work.
When I teach these books that move me so much, I read them again with my students almost every time. Every time I teach, I think, well, maybe I should stop reading the book again and instead read more about the book. Dostoyevsky always draws me back in. He says, nope. He says, read me again, read me with your students, and then we'll have a real conversation. Every time I read, I'm learning new things.
Dostoyevsky's work, written in the 19th century, is now reinterpreted by her students. Perhaps surprisingly, while reading Demons, for example, they don't only see modern life parallels, but also associations with certain politicians.
Fyodor is Trump, for sure, is trying to change his mind, is trying to consider his opinions based on what this person has said.
I think what these books have for us is that it's kind of a timeless warning. We think about what we're doing to ourselves, to our environment, to our souls, and to caution ourselves. I think that's what Dostoyevsky wants to tell us. He always says, all of his characters say, Stavrogan or Pyotr Stepanovich or Shadov or Sonia in Crime and Punishment, beg forgiveness. That's what you have to do. You can be saved. You can better yourself. You can be improved. One way to think about that is the death penalty. We execute people because we think that they're not worth keeping alive anymore, regardless of the fact that it's more expensive in our system to execute someone than it is to keep them alive. We do this because we think people are either undeserving or incapable of rehabilitation. They've done something bad and now they can be thrown away like human trash. And Dostoyevsky says, that's not true. Even the murderer Raskolnikov can be sent away to prison. He can read his Bible, he can be saved by Sonia, and he can be better. Dostoyevsky was a witness to that himself.
Dostoyevsky is not the guy to make you sit silently. He's the guy who will bring out your opinions. And even in just using his text to almost reveal who you are and what you believe is such a useful exercise, you know? I felt that I learned a lot about myself in reading his books. It's almost like therapy.
No, he gives you a therapy session that was written 200 years ago when in a language you don't understand, in a culture that you've never met. Yeah, unbelievable.
Professor Carol Apollonio maintains it doesn't matter if you read Dostoyevsky's books in the original language or a translation. He's relatable anywhere in the world, in any language. Perhaps that's why Dostoyevsky is the most translated Russian author.
Translation is actually not something that takes away from the original work. It's quite the opposite. The translation is something that actually It increases the power of a work of literature, expands its range around the world.
But there's one particular passage that Professor Apollonia prefers to read in Russian, Raskolnikov's dream in the Crime and Punishment epilogue. What Dostoevsky wrote back in the 19th century isn't just relevant today, it's more like a prophecy.
Ему грезилось в болезни, будто весь мир осужден в жертву какой-то страшной, неслыханной и невиданной муровой язве, идущей из глубины Азии на Европу. Все должны были погибнуть, кроме некоторых, весьма немногих, избранных. Raskolnikov is now in prison, paying for his crime of murder, and he falls ill, and he has a dream, and his dream is a dream about these microscopic, sort of something like bacteria, these trichina, that have affected the entire world. And when I read this, I think about our pandemic, which is a disease, but it's also tied up with the other sort of divisions and stresses that our world is suffering today. Dostoevsky is really relevant today. The idea that his writing is sort of writing of extremes and edges, and for him, the theme of apocalypse, the point at which, the world is threatened with ultimate destruction. His message, I guess, in his works about how people's intellectual concerns divide them from each other, I think is absolutely relevant to the way our political world has been developing recently.
China, a country that's always had a unique culture with its own morality and customs. Dostoevsky's novels, like Chinese characters, can seem indecipherable to Europeans. But the great author's popularity here is clear. His novels are published and republished almost every year, and many have multiple translations.
我最喜欢的其实还是最初读的那本《罪与罚》，妥耶夫斯基的思想那个时候并不是非常明确的，就是不理解为什么他会把人写成这个样子。然后当我选择了我的大学专业是俄语之后，尤其是当时我去了彼得堡一趟，就渐渐的明白了他为什么要这样写人。
我其实刚上大学的时候，我当时听了一门课，当时那个老师说，如果你是一个人文学科的学生，那么你在大学毕业之后至少能流利地说出陀思妥耶夫斯基名字，因为这个名字其实对于中国人来说，第一印象是它很长很难记。
In fact, it turns out that Chinese people don't just know Dostoevsky, but each of his characters too, by name. To celebrate the 200th anniversary of the writer's birthday, students from various Chinese institutes got together and staged The Brothers Karamazov, the novel that rather encapsulates the writer's whole life. Dostoevsky finished it just a few months before he died.
Рука в руку! Вечно так? Всю жизнь! Рука в руку! Ура, Карамазову! Ура, Карамазову! Ура, Dostoevsky!
Everyone's heard of Dostoevsky, even if they haven't actually read him. Many Chinese admit that the Russian classical writer's dark tones don't exactly resonate with their views of life. However, it turns out that even there, you can find color or add some of your own.
我最喜欢紫色。我觉得就是原来的人他们穿的衣服就是比较正式，然后颜色也很好看，我就能想到他们会穿这样的衣服。写的是。我觉得他写的是他一天生活是怎样过的样子，这个是他吃饭的样子，这个是他喝酒的样子，这个应该是他要喝水。
Raskolnikov's hat, Sonia Marmeladova's shawl, or Mishkin's coat. Dostoevsky, a renowned dandy and follower of fashion who used the best St. Petersburg tailors, paid close attention to his hero's clothing, imbuing it with special meaning. For the 200th anniversary, a group of St. Petersburg artists put on an interactive exhibition of illustrations, which is a bit like a coloring book. What and where to draw on Dostoevsky is an individual decision. The Moscow street that's named after Dostoevsky once had a different name, Novaya Bozhedonka. Fyodor Dostoyevsky was born here at the Mariinsky Hospital, in a wing for the poor, where he lived for almost 16 years. This is where he first imagined the heroes of his future novels. A once small museum commemorating the writer became a huge exhibition for the big 200th anniversary. Three floors of personal belongings, manuscripts and video installations. Dostoevsky moved from here to St. Petersburg. A whole life lay ahead. Forced labor, temptation, the search for meaning. Only later will crime and punishment, demons and the Brothers Karamazov come to light. But it all started here. 2 centuries later, we still live with the reality of Dostoevsky's world. We are all his heroes, all over the world.
That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I've been feeling weird, I can't seem to